Blur on 102.1 The X, Richmond's rock station. The Mason Nation is on. James Brooks in the studio. How are you today?
I am still recovering from the weekend.
Well, good for you. I'm very proud of you for that you're here even.
I know.
I saw you that night.
You saw some pictures. I don't know how I'm alive right now.
Also in the studio with us, Iraq war veteran and supporter of Ron Paul, Mr. Nathan Cox. How are you, bud?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good. As I see Ron Paul surging in the polls, it starts to make me think that maybe common sense has come back to this country.
We can only hope.
Yeah, we can only hope. So here's the question. Actually, James, you go with your question first.
Okay, starting off. Now, he has talked about the IRS and getting just completely rid of it. Is this true?
Yes.
So what does he want to do instead of the IRS?
He wants a voluntary tax system. He believes, just like most libertarians do, that the initiation of force is morally wrong. And by anybody, whether it's somebody with a badge or your neighbor trying to take money from your paycheck, that's morally wrong. Because if I was to come to your door and do that, that would be unacceptable and inappropriate and immoral.
So do you think that the healthcare law, where the mandate is in it that people have to pay for it and they have to have healthcare or they get fined, obviously not okay, right?
Right, and that's the principle of voluntarism, is that anything that's voluntary or consensual should be permissible in a free society, and anything that's based off of force or coercion should be deemed as inappropriate or immoral.
So how do we make any money if it's voluntary?
Well, and that's what Ron Paul preaches, is that, not only did the IRS and the Federal Reserve get established in the same year, but the reason why they did that was because they're trying to expand government, and the only way they can do that is by the printing press and by taking people's money.
Well, we've seen how the press acts towards Ron Paul this week, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.
He comes up in those polls and they go after him like nobody's business. My question is, I always tell everyone, I'm a libertarian, I believe in individual freedom, and even to the point where I believe that if someone wants to get an abortion, they should be able to do that because it's their own body, it's their own freedom. Ron Paul does not feel that way?
Ron Paul, I don't know if you know, but Ron Paul is an obstetrician. He's delivered over 4,000 babies.
Okay.
He went to medical school at Duke, and he has his own practice.
Wow.
He shares his story often when he's talking about the subject, as far as when he was in medical school, he walked into a room, and there was an abortion taking place. And this premature baby was, had just been delivered, and they put this baby in the corner of a room in a box, and the baby was crying, and then all of a sudden the baby stopped and the baby died. And then he says he walked into another room where there was the same situation. The baby was a little bit bigger, and they were fighting for this baby's life. And he, just like most other libertarians, value liberty and value life over everything. And they, like I said a few minutes ago, they detest violence and the initiation of force. And
which makes sense. And freedom is not exclusive to people who are out of the womb, I guess.
Right. It's about self-responsibility. If you didn't want to have a baby, you should have thought about that before having sex.
But in the idea of individual freedom, let's say Ron Paul gets elected, would he stop abortions, or would he pull a Bush where he's just against it and doesn't really do anything?
He doesn't think that it should be that should be a topic on a federal level, because the Constitution doesn't really discuss it. He thinks that should be a state issue.
Wouldn't that be nice if we didn't have the monster federal government sitting over our heads all the time? States could make their own ideas and everybody could do their own thing. And why can't we do this, James?
Well, according to our government, there's no such thing as state sovereignty or even individual sovereignty anymore.
Well, Nathan, I thank you for coming in, man, and setting us straight on a couple of these things. The other thing we talked about last week was the drug thing. He doesn't want to legalize all drugs, and he's not telling people to do any drugs. He just wants people to be able to do what they want to themselves, good or bad, which is essentially the explanation of freedom, right?
Right. So as long as they don't harm anybody else or their property or infringe on their rights, he believes that people should have a right to do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Where can people get a hold of you, Nathan?
They can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/whoisNateCox.
Very cool. And I thank you for coming in, dude. It was cool to talk to you and get some of this stuff straightened out. And how do you think Ron will do in these caucuses tomorrow night?
I think he's going to knock it out of the ballpark. I think he's going to come in first, possibly second. And I think it's very exciting that him and Mitt Romney are the only ones on the ballot here in Virginia.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
The Mason Nation. The Mason Nation. The Mason Nation. 102.1 The X.